In 2026, power in luxury doesn't come from boardrooms anymore. It moves through visibility, culture, and Lisa Manoban from BLACKPINK controls a lot of it. And Frédéric Arnault is the LVMH executive who understands exactly how to turn that influence into long-term brand power. That single shift explains almost everything you're seeing right now. The headlines, the fashion moments, the quiet strategic alignments that don't scream for attention but somehow dominate it anyway. This isn't a story about overnight wealth or sudden status. It's about how influence, when managed correctly, starts behaving like capital. And in Lisa's case, that capital is compounding faster than most people realize. At this point in her career, Lisa is no longer just a global pop star. She is a system, a cultural distribution engine with reach that spans continents, platforms, languages, and generations. BLACKPINK didn't just build a fan base, it built infrastructure. And Lisa BLACKPINK, through discipline and consistency, positioned herself as one of its most powerful nodes. Every appearance, every collaboration, every moment of visibility feeds into a broader ecosystem of attention that luxury brands desperately want access to but can't manufacture on their own. This is where the setup becomes important. Luxury used to rely on scarcity and silence. Today, it relies on relevance without losing prestige. That balance is almost impossible to maintain unless the brand aligns with someone who already commands trust. Lisa does. Her audience isn't passive. They're emotionally invested, digitally native, and globally connected. When she moves, they move with her. That's not fandom anymore. That's market force. Her relationship with Louis Vuitton is the clearest example of this evolution. Lisa as a global ambassador isn't about logo placement. It's about narrative ownership. When she wears Louis Vuitton, she doesn't borrow prestige from the brand borrows momentum from her. Each appearance generates earned media value that would cost hundreds of millions in traditional advertising. And unlike paid campaigns, this attention doesn't disappear. It lingers, circulates, and compounds across platforms. The trigger moment for many observers came during Paris Fashion Week 2026. Not because Lisa was present, that's expected now, but because of how she occupied the space. She didn't feel like a guest. She felt embedded. Cameras followed her instinctively. Social platforms lit up in real time. Search interest spiked globally. In the middle of the fashion industry's most important week, Lisa BLACKPINK wasn't just part of the conversation. She was driving it. That's when it becomes clear this isn't accidental. Visibility at this level is curated. And Lisa's control over her image shows a deep understanding of personal brand economics. She doesn't oversaturate. She doesn't chase noise. She appears, leaves an imprint, and disappears again. In luxury, restraint is power. And Lisa's mastery of that restraint is one of her most underrated strengths. There's also another layer that rarely gets discussed openly: identity expansion. Lisa's alter ego isn't a gimmick or a phase. It's a strategic evolution. By allowing different facets of her persona to surface, artist, fashion figure, cultural symbol, she expands her brand without diluting it. This is how modern entrepreneurship works in the creative economy. You don't abandon your core identity. You build dimensions around it. From a business perspective, this approach increases long-term brand value. It creates optionality. Lisa isn't locked into a single revenue stream or public role. Music, fashion, digital media, intellectual property, each lane reinforces the others. That's what billionaire-level really means in 2026. Not a number in a bank account, but control over multiple engines of value creation. Now, this is where Frédéric Arnault enters the picture, not as the center of the story, but as a critical interpreter of it. As an executive within LVMH with leadership experience at Tag Heuer and now Loro Piana, he represents a generation of luxury leadership that understands the economics of influence. He understands that cultural relevance isn't something you buy once. It's something you steward. His role in this dynamic is about translation. Translating attention into brand equity. Translating cultural momentum into long-term strategy. Translating visibility into durable value. And that's why this alignment matters. Not because it's loud, but because it's coherent. When the right cultural force meets the right strategic mindset, value doesn't spike. It stabilizes at a higher level. This is the business insight layer most people miss. Marketing here isn't a cost. It's an investment. Each moment Lisa BLACKPINK spends within the luxury ecosystem strengthens brand perception among younger consumers who will define spending patterns for decades. Gen Z and Gen Alpha don't respond to traditional luxury signaling. They respond to authenticity, proximity, and meaning. Lisa provides that bridge without flattening the brand's prestige. Halfway through this story, it becomes obvious that what we're watching isn't celebrity news. It's a blueprint. A demonstration of how modern influence is monetized safely, subtly, and effectively. Fans become distribution. Culture becomes infrastructure. And brand narratives evolve without ever feeling forced. There's also a financial logic beneath the surface. Increased search interest leads to higher conversion. Stronger emotional loyalty leads to faster sell-through. Resale markets strengthen, reinforcing perceived value. Digital rights and long-term IP grow more valuable as cultural moments become reference points. This is how influence turns into revenue without ever announcing itself as such. The climax of this story isn't a dramatic reveal. It's the realization that Lisa doesn't need to declare success for it to be real. Her position in 2026 reflects a different kind of ascent. One built on timing, discipline, and strategic alignment. She's not chasing the system. She's operating inside it on her own terms. What makes this moment especially powerful is how understated it remains. There are no loud claims, no forced narratives, just consistent signals that those paying attention can read clearly. In luxury, that's how real power moves. Quietly, efficiently, irreversibly. As entertainment, fashion, and business continue to converge, figures like Lisa redefine what legacy looks like. Not a single achievement, but an ecosystem of influence that sustains itself. And leaders like Frédéric Arnault demonstrate how modern luxury adapts without losing its core identity. Together, they signal where global culture and capital are heading next. That direction matters more than most people realize, because it reveals a deeper shift in how success is constructed in the modern era. Legacy is no longer something you look back on at the end of a career. It's something that's engineered in real time, through decisions that compound quietly while attention is elsewhere. Lisa's trajectory shows how influence, when managed with discipline, becomes a long-term asset rather than a fleeting moment. What separates her from countless other global stars is intentionality. Nothing about her presence feels random. From music to fashion to public visibility, every layer reinforces the same narrative: control. Control over image, over timing, and over how much access the world gets at any given moment. In a digital landscape where overexposure destroys value, restraint becomes a form of strategy. Lisa understands that scarcity still matters, especially in an age of infinite content. This is why her role inside the luxury ecosystem feels different. She isn't being used to modernize brands at the cost of their identity. Instead, she acts as a cultural translator, allowing legacy houses to speak fluently to a generation that doesn't respond to tradition alone. That translation is subtle. It happens through aesthetics, tone, and presence rather than slogans or campaigns. The result is relevance that feels earned, not forced. From a branding perspective, this is textbook high-level positioning. Lisa doesn't dilute her core identity to appeal to luxury, and luxury doesn't dilute itself to appeal to mass culture. Both sides maintain their integrity, and that mutual respect is what allows value to grow on both ends. This is why her brand value continues to appreciate rather than spike and crash. It's built for durability. There's also a mindset lesson embedded here that extends far beyond celebrity. Modern entrepreneurship isn't just about creating products or companies. It's about building systems that work even when you're not actively pushing them. Lisa's influence operates that way. Her past decisions generate present leverage, and her present moves lay groundwork for future flexibility. That's how real power scales. Frédéric Arnault's presence in this landscape reinforces that point. His leadership reflects an understanding that luxury brands are no longer insulated from cultural shifts. they're shaped by them. Instead of resisting that reality, modern luxury leadership learns how to guide it. The goal isn't to control culture, but to align with the right currents at the right moment. When that alignment happens, growth feels organic rather than engineered. This approach also reframes how we think about marketing and investment. In this model, marketing isn't about persuasion, it's about placement. Investment isn't just financial, it's cultural. And revenue isn't extracted aggressively, it emerges naturally as trust deepens. That's a fundamentally different operating system from the one that dominated previous decades. What we're witnessing is the rise of influence as infrastructure. Cultural figures like Lisa don't just amplify messages, they shape the environment in which those messages are received. Brands operating within that environment benefit from credibility they didn't have to manufacture. That's why this kind of alignment is so valuable and so rare. It can't be rushed, and it can't be copied easily. As this convergence accelerates, more artists and brands will try to replicate the formula. But replication without discipline leads to saturation. And saturation erodes value. The reason this works for Lisa BLACKPINK is because it's selective. She doesn't attach her name to everything. She chooses moments that reinforce a long-term vision. That selectivity is the invisible architecture behind her rise. Ultimately, this story isn't just about luxury or fame. It's about understanding how power evolves in a digital-first world. Those who control attention, narrative, and trust don't need to announce their dominance. It shows up in outcomes, stronger brands, deeper loyalty, and influence that persists even when the spotlight moves elsewhere. And that's the quiet takeaway here. The most valuable positions in 2026 aren't always the most visible ones. They're the ones embedded deeply into systems that shape culture, commerce, and identity over time. Lisa Manoban's journey offers a clear example of how that position is built, not through noise, but through alignment, patience, and strategic clarity. Once you see that, the conversation changes. It's no longer about whether someone has made it. It's about whether they've built something that lasts. This isn't about gossip. It's about structure. About how brand value is built in a world where attention is scarce and trust is everything. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The rise isn't speculative. It's already happening, measured not in headlines, but in leverage. If this perspective changed the way you see luxury, influence, or modern success, stay with this conversation. Because the real power plays are rarely the loudest ones, and the next chapter of this story is already unfolding. If you value analysis that goes beyond headlines, beyond hype, and into the strategy shaping global culture and capital, this channel is where those conversations continue. Subscribe and turn on notification for more exclusive insight updates. Because understanding power early is its own advantage. And before this becomes obvious to everyone, ask yourself this. In 2026, what matters more, money, or the systems that decide where money flows next?